Welcome to Freshly Brewed. I'll be your host. I'm Tony Willis, the Vice President of Entrepreneurship Innovation for LEAP, the Lansing Economic Area Partnership. And Freshly Brewed, if I can say it correctly, is our bi-weekly, monthly conversation we have with small business owners, entrepreneurs, and innovators to share light on the experience of entrepreneurship and small business ownership, and to give insight, mostly for our one and all cohort, but to the general public as a whole. And today I have the owner, founder, everything of People's Yoga, Misty Belous. Welcome, Misty.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation today. It's great to have you. I know you're based out here in Reeltown as well, where Leap's our office is in Reeltown also, just slightly north of yours. So it's great to have you part of the community and being a great outlet for a thriving and developing area of Lansing too. So appreciate that. Missy, this is a conversation and just to get insight about your experience, your journey as a small business owner, entrepreneur. And so ask me questions right back at me even as we go this back and forth. But, let's talk about yoga to start off with. Can you give some insights of, your passion and how you got interested in yoga, that being your business itself? So give us more insight about you and your background.
So I started practicing yoga when I was in college. I graduated from Michigan State University a long time ago. I'm 41. And I think I started practicing yoga when I was 19. And my first experiences were at a Michigan State University kind of yoga club that we met in the music room at MSU.
Awesome.
And then I started further kind of dabbling in different styles of yoga, and kind of knew right away once I met a woman named Cherie Farrow, who was my first big influence, that's what I wanted to do. And so I finished my degree in environmental biology, and basically tossed the degree and immediately started training to teach, and started teaching almost immediately in my very early 20s. So, and I've been teaching ever since as a career.
That's quite impressive. And it's funny how life introduces us to things that become our passion and hobbies and life calling, like going to MSU for environmental science and studies, then ending up in yoga, that wasn't the directive there, but that's how life is, and that's, yeah.
Well, and I knew I wanted to make the environmental biology and botany degree was really based on my, connection to nature and wanting to understand the environment. And I really don't think yoga is much different than that. I just think it's, coming at it from a different angle. I think everybody just needs to be a little bit more connected to their environment, and not just their external environment, but their internal environment. And so I don't think it was much of a stretch. And I'm glad that I did the studies that I did, because I do think it brought me closer to where I'm at right now. And in the last part of the studies at Michigan State, I went to Nepal for 6 months and studied Ayurveda, which is a branch of yoga. And I knew that. I mean, I knew early on that that my studies would, lead to something, beyond botany and biology, but I don't think it's that big of a stretch.
No, I think you make a great claim. Correlation between the two, the external and internal environment as a person. I think I always believe that, your skill set, the variety of that can add different things to a position or role or business you want to have. Your background in botany and environmental biology plays a role in this as well. So there's always transferable pieces that can further enhance what you're doing. So that's awesome. So see that connectivity. Yeah. So you talk about it you knew really much from your early engagement into yoga at MSU, that this is something that was that connected to your core. And you went from, having a degree, from graduating to teaching thereafter. Let's talk about that a little bit more here. You went from teaching, and how long did you teach before you founded People's Yoga itself as its own business?
It's always complicated. When somebody's going to take that really big leap of faith to start their own something, because there's always going to be obstacles in the way of that. And I would say that after teaching for various businesses in the greater Lansing area for 15, 16 years,
Okay.
maybe a little less than that, I started to realize that if I really wanted my methodology and my understanding of the practice to be solely what I teach and be successful at not just teaching myself, but teaching other people what I had learned and starting a school, that I really needed my own business to do that, that you really can't do that under somebody else's business method or methodology. And so People's Yoga is 1 year old.
Okay.
But it's a little over 1 year. I mean, the business itself, the brick and mortar. But I believe I feel that I worked towards that for many years before we actually signed a lease and built it out to be beautiful and opened it up.
I think you hit on a lot of our cohort members. I think that's probably true to them. The official stamp date of whether signing the lease or incorporating the paperwork is one thing, but to that is a lot of the work in itself.
Yeah.
So that's
and
very
it's a lot of that in my at least in my business is really community building. I had a lot of social wealth built up over many, many years of making connections, having students that supported me, that wanted to continue on with me. And I couldn't have just moved to this town and well, I could have. It just wouldn't have gone as well as it did. I could have just moved to this town and rented a space and put a yoga sign in the window and hope people come, but that's not really how it works.
Right. I think you're having that social wealth or that social capital that you established over the years speaks volumes. You have, we're doing it for over the 15, 16 plus years, as you mentioned, if not more, showcases that you are well experienced in this field, that you have insights. You've probably had a number of clients or over many years in time. I'm just an assumption. I assume that in there. And so you have a good reputation in that. So when people, you're not like somebody just fresh with an idea, you have a proven product in a way, or service in a way. And I think that, that echoes into starting your own, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't say that moving from working under people to working for myself was easy. That was one of the most challenging kind of, untying myself from other businesses and starting my own thing was it was hairy, to say the least.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes into like my next question here. Our theme, would be when somebody usually starts a business. This is what I've seen in my time. They start something because that particular piece of it, whether it's I'm building something, I'm baking a good, I'm fixing, or whatever that is, that's the passion right there, that piece of it. But then you start adding the operational business components around that. And that's where a lot of, I see entrepreneurs and small business owners, that to make that connectivity can be a struggle at times, or at least have a learning curve attached to it, And it's like, okay, I'm really good at baking these awesome cookies, but darn it, invoicing, making sure how do I schedule stuff out if I have a place of business, first shift, the transition, closing, opening things. Can you give us some insight about your experience when making the transition to your own from an existing business?
Well, I mean, you're investing in something. So when you want something to when you want something to grow, you want to build this business, you have to have some working capital in order to hire the right people for the right jobs. And if you think you can do everything yourself, like build your own website and market your own self and be your own PR person and do your own financials, and you can do all that. And sometimes you've got to, because you don't have enough capital to hire it out. But my dream when I started this was to make sure that I had enough money going into it that I could hire the right people to do the things that I'm not good at. And so Moonsail North was an amazing team of people that I'm both friends with and lucky enough to have them help me with my business plan and help me with my website and help me with really all the things that are just not my forte. And then I had, as far as software goes and learning the software aspect of it, I had lots of experience with that. So that's the part that I took on myself. But I just, the answer is that, I really think that you have to get help, whether it's, exchanged help or trade help or hired help.
I think yes, you're right. I think all those work in favor because I think bartering and exchange help is something people don't think about as much at times anymore. But if you have a skill set and you can offer in that, there's value in that, go for it completely.
Yeah. I mean, my husband's the designer and builder of our business. And so we were lucky enough to have, he's the reason it looks so beautiful down there and everything is just to the nines because that's what he does. So that would have cost to hire a designer and builder to do what we did down in Rio Town at People's Yoga would have cost a lot more money than what we ended up putting into it. So we're lucky on that front too.
No, that's
he
perfect.
didn't pay for that either. He just did it.
That's good.
He keeps on telling me that he's going to bill me for it, but
he keeps that one tucked away for later on. That's like the draw for Uno card, right? That's
You're holding on to it.
That's right. That's perfect. And I like how you mentioned, understanding what some startup capital that you may need to open your business, knowing that, hey, if I need to trade something, that's great. My husband for this, I can, my spouse for that, I can work on that. But then also, I think that you mentioned like Moonsail, knowing that I need this type of thing done, I can either take a lot of my time, fumble my way through it, and kind of get a product, but might be the product that does what I envision or does the best for the business. And so knowing that when you have to outsource things is important too, and my wife's a business owner and and it's just a situation, think of what things you want to do yourself because your best time spent versus things that you can outsource. And so that's great. That's a great tidbit for people to know that might be watching this right now in our cohorts that go for it because you got to bootstrap and figure out how you want to go for it and pivot and barter as we mentioned right there, but also understand that hey, this might be taking too much of your time. It might be worth to outsource it to some degree to free you up to do what you're really passionate in business all about.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect. And your space is beautiful, by the way, too. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
So I can't take credit for that. He'll take all the credit for
that. We can share that from us to him. And talking about space in the realm of business, branding and customer experience are major when it comes to differentials of any business, right? And there are other yoga studios around our market here. Can you give us more insights in what ways have you decided to brand and separate with People's Yoga, how you decided to take your own, and what factors you want to highlight?
I think that the thing that really started to change in my career and make me want to develop my own programs was working with a business that no longer lives in this town because they closed down a couple of years ago. But mindful movement and physical therapy was a place that I spent 7 years of my career. And that was just in teaching yoga there, but mainly to populations of people that were exiting physical therapy for a variety of surgeries that they had had or traumas that they'd had. And I'd worked with this great group of people to design a yoga class with yoga philosophy based on therapeutic approaches to rehabilitate and further rehabilitate the body. And there was such a drastic difference between the classes that I offered at various studios, and it's feeling a lot more like they were catering to a crowd of people that were, I would say, more able-bodied.
Okay.
And or even fitness approached, even though that might not be what the intention is. It seemed as though there was an understanding that if you were going to practice at that space, you had to be of a certain fitness level, and if not, you would kind of be invited but left behind, left in the dust almost. And
it's not so much fun.
It's not fun. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that they've gone to yoga classes and it was almost like never again. Like I'm never doing that again. That was not what I thought it was going to be. It was not relaxing. It was not. It didn't do what I thought it was going to do for me. And that's when I hear those sorts of things, I get really sad, because I do think that yoga can be for every single person who's breathing, can practice it and find a way to do that well and to support themselves by doing it. And so that was a big break in my, in my desire to extend the way that I had been teaching beyond just where I was at Mindful Movement Physical Therapy. And when they closed down, and I still had this huge clientele that I wanted to offer classes to, that was another piece to me saying, okay, well, continue working towards being able to do that.
Oh, that's perfect. I think you hit a niche there, especially when people don't want to be left behind and want to be engaged in the process, and because we're all going into something at a different skill set, right? And I imagine you have to make sure somebody feels invited for the total journey and not say, well, this is it, you're kind of done here. And I think that's more.
We started a vets program at Mindful Movement Physical Therapy that we still do today for veterans, and that was a really awesome, eye-opening experience as well. It was a totally funded 2-year-long program where we offered free yoga to vets, particularly vets that may have suffered PTSD, and we're really trying to recover from that. And that also, kind of sculpted a lot of the ways in which I taught and interacted. And you can take a training program on how to teach people yoga that have PTSD, but until you work with people who have PTSD and you develop those relationships and understand what works and what doesn't, it really has to be a bit experiential.
Absolutely. I think entrepreneurship is definitely, at best, it's an experiment. You
got to dive in. Yep.
You have to dive in, and
yeah,
you'll see what takes place, and experience is the best teacher. And once you have that type of engagement, you can definitely tweak it, understand. I think that's unique in having the program dedicated for a specific group like that. I think that helps make of a niche. It makes people that might feel a certain way about joining anything knowing that, oh wow, they have this offering, so that opens the door for connectivity. Yeah. So that's great for you to have that type of play within the business. When it comes to with 2020. With everything that's going on right now, and maybe this might be a play off yoga, but how do you find the balance between personal and your work as an entrepreneur with everything that's going on right now? What do you find are some tips you might want to offer that you use to keep balance and sanity at best with everything that's happening?
Well, I could use some help, but
Mm.
I can't say that it feels balanced yet, for me. And I think that that's a constant battle. But I can say that over the last year, of owning a business and being just last year, opening it up and, really trying to get it off the ground,
Right.
I was obsessed. I couldn't, I would stay up till 3 a.m. I would, I would work every moment that I had. And, I was realizing that the balance was way off and that it had to at some point come to a shift, and it does. And since March, since COVID hit, and I had to scale back on teaching, my kids' schooling changed, and so now I'm a second grade teacher, a preschool teacher, and a business owner, and I spend Tuesdays and Thursdays home with them, helping with their studies, and I, you know, have other teachers who are running things at the studio. And eventually you have to, again, just like when you started up and you have to hire somebody to do your payroll and to do everything else, eventually you want people in the business that you trust to be there and to be keeping it running while you're not there anymore. Mm-hmm. And, it's slowly, I plan on not removing myself, but being able to be at a comfortable level that when I'm there, I'm doing my utter best to offer the best experience, the best class I could ever offer, and not be overdrawn myself, not be overworked. But I think that doesn't come easily. I think you really have to slowly take little pieces away of what you're doing and slowly add somebody else to help in. And sometimes you think it's going to work and then it doesn't. You got to start over again. So it's quite a process finding that balance.
No, I appreciate that honesty. I think that resonates completely with me as a salesperson. Hopefully, a lot of our viewers and listeners, because sometimes it doesn't seem balanced at all. It's all in whack. And the number of duties. I have 3 kids myself. I have a 9-year-old, or soon to be 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And so I'm a 4th grade assistant teacher and a 2nd grade assistant teacher, and it is a lot. Plus the full-time job and everything else you have on. Especially, I know as a business owner, it's even more so because at the end of the day, you are the driving force. And you have those additional assets and folks to assist, or whether it's paid services or contracts or people, but you are one of the driving fire underneath a lot of that too. So I know it can be a lot.
I can say this, that when it comes to work-life balance, last year we took a last vacation in September, and I was not on that vacation. I was on my tablet. I was reaching for this, reaching for that, trying to communicate. And I kind of needed to be, because the business was about, it was an infant. And then this year, this September, when we took a week-long vacation, I committed to not take any of my work with me. For 1 week, after a year of really nose to the grindstone, right, working, I at least took 1 week where I was totally committed to just being with my family and surrendering all the work stuff. And I came back refreshed, and I realized that we all need so much. We need to do that more. We can't just keep going and going and going and expect ourselves to be excited about what we're doing still, or be able to have the energy to continue.
No, we all need a moment of pause and just calmness and to recharge, and that echoes. We had our last guest for Freshly Brewed was Fatih, owner of 17 Lingo, a number of Big franchises, and he mentioned very similar, like that, even on vacations and the limited amounts of vacations, but being connected still, it had to make a conscious effort to know it's okay to stop.
Yeah. And I had stuff that I had to do. I mean, I had stuff that should have gotten done, and they simply didn't get done, and I simply didn't care.
That's right. That's exactly it. That's the mentality. At some point, we all have deadlines, pressure, but you know what? You went to sleep that night, you woke up, the world is still here, right? And there might be some ramifications or whatever, but at that point in
Always
time,
is. Mm-hmm.
always is. But that's great honesty. Is you have to know, like, it is what, at lack of better terms, it is what it is. But it's like there's only so much at a
There's
certain
only so
point.
much. Yeah.
That's right. It has the wave, the tide has to recede, and to allow things to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. That's perfect. That's I simply didn't care. I had that moment plenty
Now,
of times.
last year I cared.
Right.
Last year it kept me up at night. I beat myself up about it. And then the growth that I've had is that being able to not care all of a sudden.
And to give yourself permission and that freedom to do that at times.
Yep.
Right? We are not robots. We have a spirit, we have feelings, we have exhaustion, we have a number of things that take place, and that, in a perfect world, everything would happen perfectly, but we don't live in a perfect world. And so just be aware of that. No, that's spot on. I'm just saying this out loud to Caitlin. I don't know if we have any questions from the audience, our viewers, Caitlin, but if so, just feel free to put them on as you see fit. I'm just putting it out there. Caitlin's our back-end admin, so that's why I'm talking to everybody instead of typing it. So kind of, we mentioned this kind of goes right into the balance piece too. I always say 2020 has been a year that shows, if there's one lesson or takeaway for 2020, it's the ability to be adaptable. And it's that things don't always go as planned. It can come straight out of left field or right field if you're left-handed, right-handed, or sighted, but it can come where you at least expect it. And the world can change, overnight, quite literally overnight. And can you tell us how you have adapted, and as well as you adapted people's yoga to some of these changes, that unprecedented changes that have taken place?
Yeah, on a nuts and bolts level, we had to do a lot of immediate changing, just as to offering online classes and continuing to create the technology to increase that experience for people at home. We're still hammering out some of those details, but I think that part wasn't easy for me, but it was also kind of exciting to think about being able to record a lot of the material as I'm offering it right now, and to continue to offer those recordings and classes beyond physically being there and teaching each class. So it kind of inspired me a little bit to want to change the way that I teach and reach people, and even train people to teach. And that part of it was, a big change. I used to be somebody who was ultra optimistic in that, I would hope that things would go well, and then I'd be disappointed if they didn't. But one thing I feel like 2020 has done for a lot of us is now we almost anticipate that things aren't going to go well. And if they do, we're just pleased. I think, it's kind of a good shift in a sense to make. Like, there's so much that just wasn't going well, and that, not working. And so
that's perfect. I used to have back when we were in the office as a team. Now we're all remotely for the most part, and I used to come in. People ask you, "Oh, how's your day going?" I would just say horrible. I usually say horrible, and actually it wasn't going horrible. But I just said, if I just set the bar to say horrible, I can't be let down.
Yeah,
from that,
it can only get better.
It can only get better, and so I think you're right. I think 2020 was able to help adjust our perspective a little bit and our expectations of what we think we can get done. And when something hits the ground, it can either bounce back up or stay flat, and hopefully a lot of people can keep that mentality to bounce back up as things change.
Yeah, and I think that yoga talks a lot about, the philosophy of yoga talks a lot about expectations, and this is 2020 has been a wonderful and amazing place to practice a lot of what we preach, and decreasing our expectations on what some effort is going to return to be. We put an effort out there, and then we anticipate or expect some sort of result. But if you don't do that, if you continue to put one foot in front of the other, you put your effort out there no matter what, without any expectation of what the return is going to look like, or even that there's going to be one. Right. And this has a lot to do with entrepreneurship as well, because you can't expect that it's going to go a certain way. You're bound to be disappointed if you do. So you just keep on plugging along, and you take your wins and celebrate them, but you take your losses and celebrate them as well, and you just keep on going.
Yeah, got a question popped up here.
Greatest fear. How do you manage fear? Mm-hmm.
So our question from Anand McGaw: what's your greatest fear, and how do you manage fear?
I mean, yeah, I also think that managing fear is part of the practice of yoga. And if you approach life from a fear-based perspective, you're pretty screwed, in all honesty. I mean, it's just not a good way to move forward. My biggest fears, business-wise, I guess the question is, what's my biggest business fear is maybe I have, when it comes to my kids, I fear them getting hurt, or I fear, I have a lot of my own fears that I deal with. But I think, initially my biggest fear was, well, what if the business fails? Mm-hmm. What if I invest all this, and what if I, and then, just recently and last year, that wasn't even a fathomable idea. That was like a huge fear that had really, grinded on me.
Right.
But right now I can honestly say if the business fails, I would do something else, well, that's okay. It's not, as long as I can keep my family fed and we're pretty healthy, then no big deal. The business can fail. It's not at the end of the world.
No, it's not in the world at all. And I think entrepreneurship and small business owners, just like anything, you can fail and come back. A fail is not a scarlet letter to be branded forever and deems you impossible for doing anything else. It's, as we mentioned earlier, with the experimentation piece. You fail, you learn, you pivot. You might say that's not what
failure is one of the things that we don't talk about as necessary part of growth enough. I mean, everybody needs to do a little bit more failing, and, accepting not as a fail. I don't even like the word really, but just, not accomplishing what you set out to accomplish immediately, and then going at it from another angle and trying another thing. It's a necessary part of growth. And we don't talk about that enough with our kids. I mean, we should be having our kids fail left and right and not be shamed for it. And if we can teach them how to not feel shame for their failures or their lack of producing the result they desired, then I think they'll be much more successful people.
I think you're spot on. I think that level of compassion mixed with education will help boost a lot of their own confidence, understanding, and expectation management.
That is part of it.
Yeah, that's spot on there. Mm-hmm. And then I always tell people this for our next question here, which is great. When we have you're not pinned into something either forever. You're able to be an entrepreneur, to working for a person or organization. The freedom's there. Don't ever feel like I'm stuck being this in that realm. And
Yeah.
failure could be your door out of that to explore your own growth, your own path. So yeah, that's all part of that.
Yeah. Jenny asked, what's your favorite class that you teach? Oh, that's a hard one. I love them. I love teaching. I don't know. I teach a private lesson to a woman who's quadriplegic twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And I've been doing that for 2 years. And this person's somebody that I've come to know and love a lot. And we have a special relationship. And she lives with a high level of pain in her body all day long. And when she comes to yoga, I'm able to give her a couple hours of almost pain-free, oftentimes pain-free hours. And we've worked on developing a yoga practice for her that really works. And I don't feel like I've had a more successful and satisfying experience as a teacher as I have with working with her. So she's definitely, if I have to pick, my favorite person to work with, and one of my favorite classes to teach, although it's more of a private lesson.
No, that's pretty bad. That's impactful for sure. I mean, I can see that resonates very much with you. That's really cool, impactful. Another question here just came up from Caitlin Lidstrom. Uh, what role has mentorship played in your growth as a teacher and business owner?
Well, if I understand the question right, and it's not based on who mentored me or who my teachers were, I think it's like, what role has me
I
being
think
a
both
mentor?
ways. I think we go both ways. I think
In both ways.
I think who's been a mentor to you, how's that impacted you, and then also how do you feel like, are you being a mentor to other individuals in the realm of yoga or beyond as well?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier in the interview, I've been at this since I was 19. I'm 41 now, and I've had so many wonderful people influence my teaching. And you're always a student. You're just always going to keep learning, and there's no end to that. No matter what, no, if it's craftsmanship or woodworking, yoga, whatever it is, you're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to teach something, you're taking on a responsibility to know it to the best of your ability. And when you go and mentor somebody, it's such a gift, really, to be able to do that. And because when you go to do that, you want to know it so well, and you want to give that person the same experience and the same passion that you have for it. And so, I'm forever grateful for being able to be in the role of student as well as the role of teacher. And I think it's a really wonderful balance that happens there.
Oh, absolutely. I think when we talk, or a major component to the One and All program is the mentorship piece.
Mm-hmm.
Each cohort is assigned a mentor. We also have a business coach, but the mentor is to provide. The mentor is probably take away a lot of things too. It's a dual relationship.
Yeah.
And the ability to encourage and spread insights to somebody, and especially on a personal level, beyond just a just business type conversation, it really does impact and provides a level of guidance that I think we all need and desire to have.
Yeah. I mean, I want teachers to be able to, if they want to, make a living doing what I do. I make a really good living doing what I do. And I love every moment of it for the most part when it comes to the teaching. Not necessarily, I don't love every moment of being a business owner, but I love every moment of being a teacher. And it's such a great profession, such a great career, that it is my every hope to be able to allow a few other people to actually make a living doing it, not a hobby, but, to be able to really impact as many people as I've been able to.
No, that's perfect there. Thank you for sharing that. You, especially the way you put it, you love the teaching part, the thing that drew you into yoga. And, I think that, the business part, because there's some parts we mentioned earlier there that can be more prickly or things that are just not as lovable as the thing that, that really gets us in this, but that affords you, that's so burden, not is like a worse term, but a part of the system that affords other things to happen,
Yeah.
That's great to mention. And so I think a lot of folks, when they might be listening to part of our cohort, if they're in their entrepreneurial journey, there are pieces that you will love a lot, and there's some parts that you probably won't love as much. But that's a part of their life itself. There are things that are more to you than not.
Yeah.
So okay, we actually got a few more questions. We have two more. We'll get these on to my last question. So we'll do this one and another one. So a num again. There's so many questions in num. Not joking. What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
In business, our grand opening was one of the most memorable weekends of my life. And I think over that weekend, we had 380 people come to the studio for classes. And then we had this grand opening party that evening. And it was so special. Our grand opening last year in September was so jam-packed. It was so full of love. Everybody brought food and, celebrated this, journey of opening up that business. And I just felt so supported. I felt like my community just really rallied to come together to make people's yoga at the start of it something really, really special. So I would have to say for sure that was my most memorable moment as a business owner was that grand opening.
That's perfect. Yeah, the grand opening, I can only imagine. Oh, this is a familiar face for me.
What does your day look like as a business owner during these times?
How do you manage?
It's messy.
Yeah, okay. I like that. So Ashley Willis, and this is actually there's a relation. This is my wife. She joined us. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. So you said messy. Okay, I like that.
Messy. Yeah, every day is a little bit different. I tackle the business end of. I have a strict bedtime. I have a 16-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old. He's turning 8 in a week. And I have a strict bedtime. It's, basically I want them in bed by 8:30 so that I can plug away at the computer and do anything that needs to be done after they go to bed. But
yeah,
I teach myself currently, I think, 23 hours a week. And that's split between, I don't know, it's messy, but Tuesdays and Thursdays I set aside to help my kid. I have a nanny for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I devote myself to teaching my kids what they need to know for school and trying to be with them and run a household and get laundry done and get groceries and do all the stuff that needs to be done. And so it's just all over the board, kind of reckless almost.
No, it is the life we're all in. You mentioned that bedtime. We have the exact same thing in our household. We have our 3 boys, 8:30. I mean, all the electronics are off at 6 o'clock. So they can wear yourself. It has to happen. Wear yourself out, and then everybody's asleep by 8:30. And but yeah, that's a great insight. So you're not alone when it comes to being messy at all. I think we have one more question, maybe from a one and all cohort member participant. How did you find your location to open your business, and what tools did you use? That's a good question.
A student of mine who knew I was looking met a friend of hers whose one of the owners of Michigan Avenue Advisors for coffee at Blue Owl. And she looked across the street and she saw that building. And she called, she said, "I'm sorry, but I got to make a phone call to a friend of mine." And she said, that business across the street looks like the perfect yoga studio. You've got to come down and see it right away. And I wasn't quite ready to sign a lease, and I wasn't quite ready to like jump into it. But I went down that day. I looked at the space. It has a natural reception area. It has beautiful light. It has exposed brick. It had basically everything that I wanted. And we signed a lease with that week.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, first when I contacted them, they said, "No, I don't think a yoga studio would be right for that space." And I was heartbroken. Mm. They said, "We think we want it to be a little bit more business district type stuff, like offices and that sort of thing." And I thought, no, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to keep asking. So I'm glad that they eventually said, "Yeah, I think that actually would be a great fit."
Wow, persistence. That's that's major in entrepreneurship. You were persistent. You didn't just, you saw a vision and you're able to get other people to buy in and see that vision.
Yeah, I went to the other person, the other owner.
Different avenues. You gotta play them all.
If mom says no, ask dad.
That's right. Oh, that's not very well done. You know what? Okay. So here's so that draws back into what Fatih mentioned our last one. He said, he has a partner, him and his brother are partners for all their businesses. And he said, they talk 3 to 4 times a day because they're being not bombarded, but from all different aspects. That way they can keep communications with themselves, what's going on. And that's awesome because from the other partner was able to be an advocate. They saw the vision, was able to, get their other partner on board and have you in. And I think you have added, like I said, on the onset, have been a great addition to the real town experience and beyond for Lansing. So awesome job, Misty. Thank you. And our last question is kind of like a topical question of the name of the show is what's next? What fresh ideas do you have brewing right now in your mind for the future?
Well, I'm working on a project with a student of mine who works as a professional of criminal justice at MSU, and she's been doing some yoga teaching at some prisons in Michigan. And she and I recently have been working on developing a teacher training program for inmates so that when they exit, they can have a profession or a job to pursue and some skills to do that with. So we're going to be recording sessions that we can share with prisons to teach them how to become yoga teachers, which is, I think, if you want to make an impact on society and you want to help people, then you have to look at all parts of society and where there's the biggest need. And I think there's a big need there. So that's definitely one of the things that's next for us, is working on that program and continuing to offer more advanced trainings for teachers so that they can go into schools and maybe nursing homes and, places that would really benefit from some of the practices in yoga.
You know what? That's spot on, Misty. I really appreciate you saying that, your background, for everything with the specialty with an individual who's a quadriplegic to the veterans and looking at those that are in the penitentiary system. I love your holistic view and making sure that people that are in situations that there's still some light, there's still some learning, there's still some ability to partake and get a better one sense of one's own internal environment as well. So I think that's your meaning and purpose behind that shows so much, and we're glad to have you in our region the Lansing region and what you're doing. So great to you, Misty.
Thank
Uh,
you so much.
and thank you for joining us today. And so with that, we're going to conclude this uh, month's Freshly Brewed segment. Again, we'll tag People's Yoga in our social media posts and links of this video. So if you want to reach out to Misty about getting involved or online sessions or in person and beyond, we'll have that information out there as well. But until then, for all of our entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs alike, keep the ideas coming, keep the coffee hot, and keep sane and find balance in some shape or form.